Just when you thought that the Senate Bipartisan Safer Communities Act couldn't get any worse, the New York Times is here to float a trial balloon against anybody who would dare sell personal property that happens to be a firearm. Make no mistake, when the media puts out trial balloons like this, they are putting it out to the Democrats. Everything's going to be linked in the description box below, and this one you need to see because they're coming after your ability to sell anything. Of course, it'll be linked in the description box below for you to read more in depth, and make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. We are distributing freedom twice daily, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. All right, my brothers and sisters, we've got to dive into this because this is an article that came about an hour ago when I was looking for what I was going to cover today. And this is massive because the New York Times is an arm of the Democratic Party. They are not a separate entity. So when you see them put forward things like, dude, are the Democrats going to use this benefit of the Senate Bipartisan Safer Communities Act to curtail anyone who sells a gun ever? But will they use it? Trust me, it's more than just a question. It's a demand written in a question form. But let me show you what they're at, because this is why Republicans, John Cornyn, you don't do this. Because this is, you gave them everything they want for the framework of attacking every single person who would sell a gun. Let's get into this. A Craigslist for guns with no background checks. A federal gun law passed last year gave the Biden administration a powerful new tool to increase background checks on private firearm sales. Will the administration use it? Again, trial balloon. Nothing they do is on accident. Always look at the why. Let's get it. Let me show you what they're up to and how this is going to work out poorly. Federal law requires background checks only for purchases made through approximately 80,000 businesses that sell, ship, import, or manufacture weapons licensed to the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Unlicensed private sellers, by contrast, can legally sell their wares at gun shows, out of their house, and increasingly through online platforms such as Arms List that match buyers with sellers. This is making an enemy of anybody who would sell something that is private property. They want universal background checks. And if you don't believe me that this entire thing was planted in here for this purpose, I got a bridge to sell you because this is important. This is they're openly saying it, what the Democrats did here last year. Check this out. This is in the New York Times. The growing digital loophole is causing alarm among gun control advocates and some of those whose relatives were targeted with powerful weapons purchased with relative ease online. Here come the Democrats. They will always do this. But the regulatory landscape might be changing. Senate Democrats, long blocked in their attempts to require universal background checks, negotiated a provision into the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, signed into law last year that is expected to vastly increase the number of background checks in the unregulated gun market. The regulations required to put the new law into effect, expected to be released soon, would require anyone who earns a profit from selling firearms to obtain a federal license and conduct background checks. Anyone. That is one gun. So if you sell a gun to your family member, you are required to have an FFL. If you sell a gun outside of the FFL system, there's penalties involved. In fact, listen to this penalty situation they're putting forward. Previously, dealers were required to join the federal system only if they derived their chief livelihood from selling weapons. Failing to register carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fines. So you sell a Glock to a family member who needs it, and that's your personal property. You can no longer do that without a federal firearms license, of which you have to run the entire background check system. You can't even do private sales anymore. And if you do, 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fines. You tell me, when we were sounding the alarm about the Senate Bipartisan Safer Communities Act last year, that we didn't say this exact same thing. And they said, no, it would never be used for that. John Cornyn, 15 Republicans in total in the Senate signed on to this. They brought this forward, and now that it's law, the Times says, well, this is such a powerful new tool. Are they going to use it? Are they going to use it? This is completely telling the Democratic wing and the administration, hey, use this. That's what's happening right now. So any firearm sale, that's what they're talking about. But let's continue because there's even more goodness. The regulations could set a threshold number of transactions that would define a dealer. Gun control groups hope to see it at 5 sales a year or lower. The rules will be backed up by a renewed push to prosecute businesses that refuse to register by accessing bank records, storage unit leases, and other expenses associated with running an off-the-books gun business. Let me translate that for you. So the Democrats negotiated this clause into the Senate Bipartisan Act. Law. So now that the administration has the rules and the oomph to do it, Chris Murphy and the Democrats and other gun control advocates are going to pull your bank records. They're going to pull your rent or lease agreements. Let's see what else. Prosecute businesses that refuse to register, because if you sell more than 5 or lower, you're a business now. So you're going to be prosecuted by accessing bank records, storage unit leases, and other expenses associated with running an off-the-books gun business. Well, now here's a question, it's hypothetical. How are you going to be able to tell if you're not running a eBay business where you're buying things and then selling things online that you're flipping from Amazon returns? Or are you just going to get all that information, the banking records and the rent and lease agreements and all that without a warrant? Because we're going down a road right now which is really terrifying. So they've changed the definition of what is a gun dealer to 5 or less sales in a year. So that less means 1. Less could mean 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but not more than that. So now you've changed the definition. You're now a business. And since you're a business, we're going to look at your bank records. We're going to look at all of your leasing agreements. We're going to look at everything else without a warrant to determine if you're outside the scope of what a business is and are you dealing in firearms without background checks. By hook or by crook. They can't get universal background checks through the legislature, so what they're doing is they snuck it into an actual bill that was signed on and accepted by Republicans, and this has actually been one of John Cornyn's little pet projects for decades now. But now, the New York Times gets a hold of that and says, you know what? Now that we're talking about that, and we've got the red flag funding that was bribery for states, which has been misallocated, that's a problem. Then we've got all the money that's not going to be allocated to schools, and if it expires by 2026, that money gets to be sent somewhere else. Then you've got 18 to 20-year-olds who now are subjected to a manual background check, a mandatory background check for 10 days in waiting periods. Now they're going to go after the road of the redefining of who's a business or who isn't. Send this one out. This is a big deal. And I got a little amped on that one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.